Excuse me as I kiss the sky.
Hey guys, it's your girl Soncerae here. I like to welcome you to Toxic Tuesday. Every Tuesday, I'm going to talk about a toxic relationship that ended in the worst way humanly possible, with someone dying. These are going to be true crime cases. Anyone who has been watching me for a long time, you know I love to watch true crime on YouTube. So I decided I'm going to do my own true crime videos, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them. So today, my first true crime video is about Michael Giles and Quanetta Harris. This is Michael Giles, a military vet who's originally from Louisiana but moved to Garland, Texas. He loved the military and was actually in it for 20 years. He loved traveling. His family considered him humble, loving, funny. He had never been married. He had no kids, and after 20 years of being in the military, at around 40, he had a tech support job in Garland, Texas. On October 12th, a VA agent went into the Garland Police Department to make a missing persons report. A detective by the name of Gary Sweet, who worked in the Crimes Against Persons Department, decided that he was going to be the one that sat down with the VA agent who was there to talk about the missing person. The agent explains that the VA owns the mortgages on the homes of military personnel across the country, and one of the homes in Garland is in foreclosure. She's actually surprised because usually these payments are made on time, all of the time. Double payments are even made in regards to this house. 46-year-old Air Force veteran Michael Giles was the owner of this home, and he had stopped making payments on the home over a year ago. He was actually ignoring the VA contacting him, and they thought that that was abnormal because, like I said, he had been making payments all of the time on time. His family had seen him since July 2006, and this was around the same time he stopped making payments, and that was a surprise to me because I'm thinking, let me not have been hearing from a relative for 3 weeks, and I would have panicked immediately and start looking around for them frantically. Michael was the youngest out of 6 siblings, okay, and he had an older sister named Gwendolyn. He had been saving for years so he could get out of this VA house and go get his own home, so he was financially in a very, very good place according to his sister. She hadn't heard from him, his mother hadn't heard from him, and let me explain to you why they didn't file a missing persons report. According to the family, he was texting and emailing. July 4th, 2006, he was supposed to come over for, cookout, 4th of July, that's what everybody does, and instead he texted and told his mom that he would be cooking at home instead. His mom had left a whole bunch of voicemails. He wasn't answering the voicemails, but he was emailing and texting, so his family thought that everything was okay. 3 weeks later, his mom and his sister and her sister's husband decided to drive over to his house because no one had heard his voice. They got to his house and there was a for rent sign there. Oh, his mother was so upset about that because number one, his Honda Civic was still sitting in the driveway. Number two, it was just kind of a surprise that he would just up and move suddenly without telling anybody where he is. So they called him and he texted, said he just needed some time away. Around that time, his family had assumed that maybe he had went to New Mexico because he was dating this nurse there named Felicia. The police could not find Felicia. His family didn't have Felicia's contact information, and I'm just surprised about that too because they had met Felicia. They knew who Felicia was. Why didn't they have Felicia's contact information? So back to after the VA agent had come into the Garland police station, the Garland police actually found out that the house had been rented to this guy named Robert Austin. Robert Austin had told the Garland police that Michael Giles' goddaughter, Quanetta Harris, was actually the one that he was speaking to because she was supposedly handling all of Michael Giles' affairs. He never met Michael Giles. He knew Michael Giles existed, but he just thought that Quanetta Harris was his goddaughter and that he was dealing with her and only her in regards to anything that had to do with the house. Robert Austin said after leasing the house for 6 months, he got some disturbing news, and the disturbing news was inside of a letter from a woman by the name of Tracy Knight. Tracy Knight said Quanetta Harris had been killed in a car accident on her way to church. She also said that she was the new owner of the home and that she would be selling it, so Robert Austin had to move. Mr. Austin also told the police that inside of his leasing agreement was a stipulation, and the stipulation was to not dig in the backyard. That's kind of strange, right? So the police was like, don't dig in the backyard, like what? By this time, Michael Giles's cell phone and home phone had been cut off. So the police decided to pull his financial records, and they found out that money was being taken out of his account in Detroit, Michigan. It wasn't him that was making withdrawals though. The name that was making withdrawals was Quanetta Harris. Now this was interesting because there was payments being taken out even after her supposed death. They ran a background check on Quanetta Harris, and one of her AKAs was Tracy Knight. They also found out that Quanetta Harris was actually married to a man named DeAndre Knight. So the police decided to do 911 disturbance calls scans, and they found out that July 2006, around the time that he disappeared, a neighbor named Christy Kirst said that she saw some Hispanics loading up some furniture outside of Michael Giles's home. And so when the police came, an African American woman came out claiming that she was the new owner of the home. So the police didn't do anything, even though it was in the middle of the night. Nobody was breaking the law. There was no type of disturbance. So Miss Christy Kirst decided to write down the license plate number of the Hispanics who were loading the truck. The license plate number directed them to a man by the name of Francesco Vacuna, and he said that he bought all of the furniture out of Michael Giles's house for only $300. Now he was telling Detective McNair this, and this was actually Detective Sweet's partner. Mr. Vacuna tells Detective McNair that when he was doing a tree trimming service job, a lady named Katie walked up to him and asked him did he want to buy any furniture because she was moving. And so he bought all of the furniture out of Michael Giles's house for only $300. Yes, $300. He also said that the only thing that he didn't buy was a couch because it looked like it had a big blood stain on it. Mr. Vacuna's son was out there too when Katie approached them, and he tells his father and Detective McNair that Katie actually paid him a little extra money to dig a hole in the backyard, which is interesting because this was only 2 or 3 months before the new tenant moved into the house. Mr. Vacuna's son said he had no idea why he was digging the hole. He just digged the hole to get the money that she was offering him. So Detective McNair decides to show Mr. Vacuna and his son a 6-picture lineup, and inside of that lineup is a picture of Quanetta Harris that both of them picked out as the woman that they called Katie. The teenager tells Detective McNair where exactly the hole was dug, and so Detective McNair goes out and decides to get a warrant to search the house. Meanwhile, Detective Sweet decides to go to Detroit, Michigan to check on Quanetta Harris. As Detective McNair is executing the search, he finds out that the hole that the teenager said he had dug, where it was actually a cement slab built over top of it. And the detectives both felt, even Detective Sweet, that there must be a body underneath that slab. Now, you know, that's logical, you know what I mean? Because that's the first thing I'm gonna think. If you got somebody digging and then somebody's like messing and then suddenly there's a concrete slab on top, okay, somebody's body's underneath, right? So Detective Gary Sweets is in Detroit talking to Quanetta out front of her house. So while they're digging at the same time, simultaneously, Detective Sweets is in front of Quanetta Harris's house speaking with her about the whereabouts of Michael Giles. Quanetta Harris admits that she knows Michael Giles. She's like, yeah, I've known him, haven't seen him in a while. She said it had actually been a year, but she didn't even know that he was missing, and she also didn't know that Detective Sweets was stalling for time, so he was just out there having jibber-jabber conversation with her, just trying to keep her around because he didn't want her to flee. He couldn't arrest her until a body was found, and he was actually waiting on Detective McNair to call him. When they did actually find out that there was a body underneath this concrete slab, so Detective Sweets invited her to the police station. He didn't arrest her. He said he just had some further questions for her, and then he would leave her alone after that. So then when they got to the police station, Quanetta Harris began to tell the history of her and Michael Giles. He finds out that her and Michael Giles were deployed in Europe, and she was Michael Giles' neighbor and actually married. Before she was married to her current husband, she had a previous husband, who was Michael Giles' supervisor. She actually got in trouble on base, and her husband was furious with her, so he threw her out, and Michael Giles took her in. She had an on and off relationship with him for 10 years. 10 years, and no one knew anything about this woman. No one, not his family, his friends, nobody. So then Detective Sweets asks her, why does she have access to Michael Giles' financial records? And she says, oh, because we have a 6-year-old daughter together. And so Detective Sweets is like, excuse me, you guys have a what together? I would have been like, whoa, okay, what? And she says that Michael Giles actually gave her access to this account because of that. Then he starts questioning her about the hole in the backyard, and her whole demeanor changes, because prior to this question she was actually calm and collective, but then when he began to ask her about the hole in the backyard at Michael Giles' house, she catches an attitude. He then gives her this amazing revelation and lets her know that yeah, they dug up a body and found Michael Giles there, and she tried to lawyer up after that. She said she didn't want to say anything else until she had an attorney. So October 19th, 2007, she was arrested for the murder of Michael Giles. She was extradited back to Texas from Michigan. So the police are still doing the search. They're digging through documents at Michael Giles' home. They're digging through Quanetta Harris's documents as well. And there are actually documents there that proves Quanetta Harris does in fact have power of attorney over Michael Giles. They also found the emails that Quanetta Harris had sent to his family after his death. 6 days after Michael Giles' body was found, the medical examiner actually identified his body and the cause of death. He had actually been shot in the head with a 9mm. Quanetta Harris got out of jail. She posted bond. She was waiting for her trial to begin. Detectives actually went to talk to Michael Giles' financial planner. The financial planner says that a letter was sent to him. This Quanetta Harris person, she uses all types of emails, texts, letters. It's just crazy. Just a paper trailer. She just paper trailer. Inside the letter, it said that Michael Giles had a stroke and could not move and or talk and was bedridden. Quanetta Harris was actually the one that sent this letter to his financial planner and was telling him that she wanted to have access to all of his finances. So his financial planner was like, whoa, I need to be able to see Michael Giles. I'm not just going to give you access to all of his finances simply because you said he's sick. I'm going to need to see him, right? That's a financial planner doing his job. He insists that Michael Giles come to his office to meet him, but Quanetta Harris said he's bedridden, so the financial planner said fine, I'll come to him. So the financial planner goes to Quanetta Harris's house, meets someone he believes is Michael Giles, sitting in a medical bed in the middle of the living room floor, face bandaged up, can't talk, can't speak, can't sit up, can't do anything. And I'm like, oh my God, Michael Giles did this? He was actually there? What? But it couldn't have been, because he was already passed away. So who is this person sitting here pretending to be Michael Giles? The financial planner saw his identification and he identified the man that he saw as Michael Giles. But Michael Giles had been passed away for 3 months. So who was this man that Quanetta Harris introduced to the financial planner, who actually signed the documents that the planner brought? That's the question. So the police decided to show the financial planner a 6-picture lineup once again, and the planner actually picks out the picture of Quanetta Harris's second husband, DeAndre Knight. So November 26, 2007, DeAndre Knight walks up into the police station for questioning. And he's like, no, I was just helping her with a scam. I don't know anything about no murder. Now, I'm glad he told the truth, because he could have lied. You know, he could have said just about anything. But he came there, he told the truth. And the funny thing about it is DeAndre Knight and Michael Giles actually resembled strikingly. So the police were like, okay, I see how, you know, the financial planner could actually thought that this person was actually Michael Giles. Months later, okay, the prosecutor on Quanetta Harris's case calls Detective Sweets and asks him to come into his office. I mean, he insisted, okay? Detective Sweets gets way down to the prosecutor's office, and it's a woman sitting there named Erica Flores. Erica Flores was 19 years old, and she had a defense attorney with her, and she confesses to the murder of Michael Giles. And detectives are like, excuse me, like, huh? Like, no, right? Like this, no. We have too much evidence on Quanetta Harris. We thought you were going to say that you helped Quanetta, but here you are talking about you did it. She gives the police this cockamamie story about how her and these two people decided to rob Michael Giles, and it didn't go right. She says two friends of hers named Juan and Vic tried to rob Michael, and it didn't go right. She says Juan put a pillow over his head and she shot him, wrapped up his body, and buried him in the backyard. So of course detectives think she's lying. All right, they're like, you're lying. Okay, we don't want to hear that. They start asking her questions and she couldn't answer, of course, immediately like she was supposed to. They asked her, what did Vic look like? She didn't know what to say. So detectives take Erica back home. Her mother answers the door, and the detective explains to her, you know, your daughter just tried to confess a murder that she didn't do. And he starts to tell Erica's mom the story, and Erica's like, hold up, I think I know this story. This sounds like my friend Quanetta Harris's story. Come to find out that Quanetta Harris and Erica's mother was actually cellmates in the county jail. Erica tells this amazing story about how this woman called her after she saw her resume on the internet and she was offering her a job. The woman claimed to work for the Attorney General's office, and Erica was being considered for the job. And in order to be considered for the job, she had to falsely confess to murder. The lady tells her that they are privately investigating the district attorney's office, and they want to find out how prosecutors treat criminals. She told Erica that they were going to put her in jail and for her not to worry about it, and they will get her out of jail if she did it. She was guaranteed the job if she did it. The lady even gave her a script, so everything that she said when she was confessing the murder was actually a script that them two had practiced, her and the lady. So then what do? What detectives always do, show her a 6-picture lineup, and in this picture she picks Quanetta Harris. This Quanetta person is just diabolical, this lady. Man, this girl mastermind. I never seen nothing like this before. I ain't never seen nothing like this before. I mean, master manipulator. She was really good. So Quanetta Harris and Michael Giles had actually been in an on and off romantic relationship for 10 years. You think you know a person, I mean, after 10 years of dealing with them, you kind of think that you're not gonna get murdered by them. She basically shot him in the head while he was sleeping on the couch, just so she could have access to his money. She ended up burning through $200,000 in a year. $200,000 that wasn't even hers. On November 9th, 2007, a memorial service was held for him at the Golden Gate Funeral Home in Garland, Texas. In October 2009, Quanetta Harris actually pled guilty and ended up getting 50 years in prison. And she deserved it. I mean, she was sending the family emails in Texas so they wouldn't file a missing persons report. Oh my God, I think this lady deserves more than 50 years. I'm sorry. Her attorney, Richard Franklin, said he thought she was one of the most intellectual people he could have ever met, and he didn't understand why she would go down this route. Honey, the lady is smart. After hearing this case, I was just like, this lady is just brilliant. This is like diabolical. I mean, God. Now, don't get it twisted. It is kind of dumb to do something of this nature. Okay, not kind of dumb. It just is dumb. So for her to be that smart, why she did something so dumb, I don't know. The prosecutor said had she continued making payments on the home and the home hadn't went into foreclosure, the VA agent wouldn't have came down to the Garland police station to actually file a missing persons report. So no one would have ever found out. She probably would have got away with it if she just would have kept paying the mortgage on the home. Oh, and it gets worse with this lady. In January 2016, she obtained a special Dallas County form that was forged by Judge Amber Gibbons, and the fake paperwork ordered that her sentence be reduced from 50 years to 8 years. They found out that it was a forgery because they called to basically confirm. Yeah, they had to confirm the legitimacy of the paperwork. I mean, how do you go from someone having 50 years to 8? Did she not think someone was going to check? Because of that, they actually took Quanetta Harris out of general population and basically put her in like administrative segregation, because now now she was considered a security risk. How did she obtain documents with a judge's signature on it is the question. So yeah, this lady is something else. What a whirlwind. I'm telling you that was just a web of lies. Like, oh my God. So that lets you know you never know. That lets you know, like, you think you know someone, and in actuality it can be something that they aren't. You know, you just never know with people. 10 years she knew this man, and she knew him so well that she knew his finances. She knew how to get access to him. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and let me know if you would like for me to continue doing Toxic Relationship Tuesdays. It'll only be on Tuesdays that you will see true crime videos about relationships, okay? I appreciate you watching. Have vision and stay focused. Namaste. Hey my true UBs, what's up? Today is Toxic Relationship Tuesday, where I do a true crime story for you. If you love my true crime stories, put inside of the comment section #TrueUB, and I got you for next Tuesday. If you haven't checked out my first true crime video about Juanetta Harris, go check that out. Don't be surprised if you hear Justice in the background. You should know by now that Justice is all up and through my background. That's my 5-month-old son. He just moaning and cartoons and all types of stuff. You're just gonna hear it. Don't let it take you off focus though. So today my story is about Katrina Dumas and Fred Leonard. Katrina was a 27-year-old single mother who was into catering. She was classified as fun-loving, a very good mom, very happy, very nice, and was Christian. She would always go do community service events and volunteer. People loved Katrina so much. She just was very nice. And people in Clarksdale, Mississippi loved her so much. Clarksdale, Mississippi is a very small city. It's a small place, and everybody kind of knows everybody. They're very close. It's a very good community, and people knew about Katrina. On April 23rd, 2008 at around 5 p.m., the Clarksdale police were called to an alley behind a church. Not a church, my bad. A funeral home. Earlier that afternoon, Carol's daughter went missing. Her and her mother had this catering business where they passed out lunch plates. So Katrina went out to pass out a lunch plate, and she took her little son Frankie with her. The way that Carol found out that Katrina was missing was because the school that Rena had went to had actually called her and said, you know, Katrina has not come to pick up Rena. Can you come pick up Rena? So Carol goes to pick up Rena and brings Rena back to the house. Rena and Carol go searching for Katrina after Rena was sitting on the porch and saw her mother's car drive by, but it wasn't being driven by her mother. Rena saw the car from a far distance at the intersection near the house, and she saw that someone other than her mother was driving the car. So she went to go grab Carol, followed the car into the city, and then they lost sight of the car. But they kept searching, and eventually they found the car in an alley behind the funeral home. Once they called the Clarksdale police, they broke into the car, opened the car doors, popped the trunk, and found blood inside of the trunk. Her mother is terrified, and I see why. I mean, you've been looking for your daughter, you find her car, she's not in it. The person that was driving was a complete stranger, you don't know who it was, and she didn't pick up her daughter from school, so where is she exactly? Yes, I would be panicking as well. Katrina gave birth to her daughter Rena when she was 17 years old, and her family wasn't necessarily happy about that because they were a good Christian family, but they ended up supporting her anyway. Her mother, Carol, bought Rena a home, so she was living in her own home. She had a decent situation. She wasn't living in poverty, and she was waitressing at a local restaurant. When she was a waitress at this restaurant, she was around 20 years old, and she ran into this local legend by the name of Fred Leonard. Fred Leonard was 14 years her senior, but instantly there was a connection between the two, but the problem was that he was married. So them two just stayed friends, and then his wife ended up filing for divorce. After his wife filed for divorce, him and Katrina got into a relationship. Everyone loved Fred Leonard. Like I said, he was a local celebrity. Almost made it to the NBA. He had played basketball. He was about 6'5", alive. He was charming. People just loved him. He was one of those local celebrities in a small city where everyone loved him because of who he was in high school and in college. So now he was older and everyone loved him. One of the detectives that was assigned to Katrina's case knew him from high school. So Fred was married and ended up getting a divorce in 2001. Him and Katrina fell madly in love with each other. They loved each other so much. 4 years later, they ended up having a baby together. And this baby was Frankie. Katrina had a catering business and was going out to pass out a lunch plate, and she took Frankie with her. Frankie is Fred Leonard's child. Rena's father is no longer in the picture. She had Rena when she was 17. After Frankie was born in 2005, there was a strain on Katrina and Fred's relationship. I'm assuming he didn't want another child. He had already had a son already from his previous marriage. Him and Katrina never got married. They only had a child together, but they had been living together for so many years. What ended up being the reason why it was a strain on the relationship is because Fred had fell in love with another lady by the name of Jessie, and Jessie was a part of the school system. Soon after Fred and Jessie met each other, him and Jessie actually got married, and they too had a baby. So here's Fred with 3 baby mamas, and here's Katrina with 2 baby daddies. This just sounds messed up. It sounds like Fred doesn't know how to end one relationship before he starts another. Like I said, he was married when he met Katrina. His wife filed for divorce. He ended up dating Katrina, and then while he and Katrina was dating each other, they had just had a baby. He started dating Jessie. Then he and Jessie ended up having a baby and getting married soon after. And so there was no breaks in between these relationships that this man was having. So Katrina was not upset that he decided to marry Jessie. She just decided to move on with her life. You know, she wasn't going to be butthurt about it. She just moved on with her life. So Katrina and her mother Carol started a catering business to where they were passing out lunch plates. And while Katrina was passing out lunch plates, she ran into this guy named Jack, and immediately they hit it off and they began to date. She really liked herself some Jack Rafferty, okay? She was very happy. Her family said she was very, very happy inside of this relationship. The happiest they had ever seen her. On April 23rd, Katrina left the house with Frankie to deliver lunches, but never came back. She would usually come back at around noon, but here it was 3 p.m. and Rena's school called to tell Carol that Katrina never came to pick her up. So her mom keeps calling Katrina over and over and over and over, and Katrina isn't answering the phone. Rena noticed something strange as she was sitting on the porch. She saw her mother's car go by, and the person that was driving it wasn't her mother. Carol and Rena jumped into the car and went searching, and they ended up finding the car in the alley behind a funeral home. The sheriff's department got involved very quickly. They impounded the vehicle and opened a missing persons investigation, and they also let the Mississippi Crime Lab process the vehicle. There were no witnesses, there was no surveillance, and no description of the person who was driving Katrina's vehicle. Of course, detectives do what they do best. They asked Carol about Katrina's personal life. Carol told them about Katrina's new boyfriend, Jack. Later that evening, they go find Jack and bring him in for questioning. He says he hadn't seen her in a few days, but he had talked to her on the phone the night before. He also told detectives that her ex-boyfriend, Fred, is still around and it's bothering him. And of course, detectives get suspicious because they're like, oh, so you're dating Katrina and Katrina's ex is still around? What a motive for murder. Jack could be a little jealous. Jack could be a little bitter. So they asked Jack about his whereabouts. Where was he between the hours of noon and 3? I need you to be quiet. So they asked Jack what were his whereabouts between the hours of noon and 3 o'clock. Jack says that he was at work until 5 p.m. and of course detectives try to go and see if this is exactly where he was. Justice. You already done messed up my shirt. I'm gonna do a true crime video with you making all of this noise and pulling on my stuff. Like, what are you doing? You gonna read it with me? You gonna read it with me? Back on a whole nother day to record the rest.
Hey. How you doing? I was wondering was anything wrong. I called Tracy, did nobody answer? Did they get blown away by a tornado or something?
I done press record. My mama over here on the phone. Mom, what you doing? What you doing? What you talking about? picking up where I left off. And I'm tired. So I can do this. So, later that evening, wait, what am I trying to say? Okay, where do we leave off at? We left off at, they found Jack, interviewed Jack. Jack was at the police department, okay, and he's there for questioning. So, he said that he hadn't spoke to Katrina until the night before. No, he hadn't seen her in a couple of days. He hadn't seen her in a couple of days, and he had spoke to her the night before. So they asked him what he had been doing all day. He said he had been working until 5 p.m. that day. So they went to go make sure that this is definitely what he was doing. They went to go confirm. And inside of his interview, he was basically saying that Katrina was still seeing her ex Fred, and this was making him uncomfortable inside of the relationship and causing a problem. So they went to go look for Fred Leonard. They found Fred Leonard walking down the street in front of his house and began asking him questions. One of the detectives actually lived 100 yards away from Fred's house. Most of the people assigned to the case knew Fred from high school. Clarksdale, Mississippi is a small community near the Mississippi Delta, and everyone is kind of close-knit to each other and knows each other. Fred said that earlier that morning what he did was went and go drop his wife off at work, and then when he went to the grocery store, he ran into Katrina in the store with their son. So they talked for a little while in the grocery store, and then he told her he was going to be waiting outside in the parking lot. Then she came outside to the parking lot. Them two started talking in the parking lot and then decided to go grab breakfast with each other. After they had breakfast, he says he played with his son for a little while, kissed his son goodbye, and haven't seen either one of them since. They asked him what did he do after them two went for breakfast. He said he went over to his uncle's house and helped him put up some drywall because his uncle was building a house. Then at around 2:30 he went back to the school to pick up his wife. He told the police he was also taking the time to look for Katrina and Frankie himself because Katrina's sister called him looking for Katrina, so he went out looking for her on his own. Detectives spoke to him about Katrina's new boyfriend, Jack. He said that he had no issue with Jack whatsoever and no problem with Katrina dating Jack. But he did also mention that him and Katrina had an arrangement. So basically that means that they were still sleeping together. So then the detectives thought about, okay, he's married, she's in a relationship with Jack. So there's a possibility that Fred's wife, Jessie, is a person of interest. She found out about the affair. She's probably angry. She just wants to get some type of revenge, whatever. April 24th, 2008, the next day, they brought Jessie, Fred's wife, into the police station for questioning. Clarksdale, Mississippi is a very small community, so the community came together to pass out flyers and to search for Katrina. A lot of people inside of the community knew Katrina because she would do a lot of volunteer work and community service. When Jessie, Fred's wife, comes in for questioning, she said. You get your she said back, Cheryl? Okay, wait. Noon 3 p.m. at work. Okay, Jessie comes in for questioning Fred's wife, and they ask her what was she doing between noon and 3 p.m. and she says that she was at work. Detectives tell her that her husband, Fred, had breakfast with Katrina that morning, and when she found out, she was livid. She had no idea that Fred was still seeing Katrina in that way. She didn't know that they were dating, and she didn't know that they were having sex still. She also admitted that her and Katrina had a very volatile relationship. It was basically beefing. I mean, that sounds typical because you got wife and you got baby mama, so sometimes there can be some type of friction there, so that makes sense. So the police thought, maybe they should be suspicious of Jessie. She doesn't like Katrina. We can't find Katrina. We found her car and there's blood in her trunk. So what's going on really with this situation? So Jessie says, listen, I was at work. I don't have anything to do with this whole Katrina missing. I didn't like Katrina, but I definitely did not murder her. I don't know what's going on, but you should ask Fred's ex-wife, Yara. Now remember I told you that when Fred met Katrina, he was married to another woman. Her name was Yara. So Jessie is Fred's second wife.
Right Alright, quick, listen. After you like, share, and subscribe, smash that notification bell. And after the video, make sure you go to my community tab to interact with me and other Soncerae supporters. There, you'll find fun polls, interesting discussions, prizes, and giveaways. You can also donate to Operation Help Rebuild Block 11 Magazine by going to paypal.me/revenue digital. I also have a cash app. It's Revenue DM. You can also go to yaora.com, pick out your favorite shirt, purchase it, and then send me a picture of you in it to uplift.yaora@gmail.com, and I will return your money to you, okay? Let's get back to the video.
While trying to find where Yara was, detectives got an anonymous phone call from someone telling them that Katrina's body was hidden behind a church. Detectives searched the secluded area around the church and find nothing. They searched it for 1 solid hour, front, back, side to side, and they couldn't find anything that had to do with Katrina. Nothing. Meanwhile, I said that Meanwhile, family and friends and communities band together, like I said, to find Katrina. And, everyone's walking around doing searches in areas that she would usually go to. Fred's son and his cousin were a part of this search as well. During the search, another anonymous caller calls their grandmother and says to them that Katrina and Frankie are tied up behind another church. The city of Clarksdale is so small, it's only 2 churches in an entire area. The police were already at one church, and they knew that's where that search had taken place, so they decided to go to the other church because the anonymous person did not tell them which church on what side of town it was on, so they basically just had to do process of elimination. The church that the detective search was in, Farrell, I think it's Farrell. You know anything about Mississippi? No, okay, well, Farrell, whatever. And then the other church was in this place called Sherrod. So they went searching for them in Sherrod at the church behind the church. They go behind the church calling Frankie and Katrina's name, and Fred's oldest son didn't necessarily want to go deeper into the woods, but his cousin did, so his cousin went deeper in, and so he followed behind him. Suddenly, as they're walking deep in the woods, they see little Frankie laying there almost dead. He's tied up. He has bug bites all over him, snake bites all over him. He's so close to death. He's dehydrated and everything. So his older brother Fred goes running straight towards him. He was basically left there to die and survived only off of the grace of God because he had been there for a solid 24 hours just laying there. There were a lot of coyotes and alligators and all types of things inside of the woods that could have killed little Frankie, and it's just a miracle that he ended up getting out of that situation alive. So his older brother Freddie took him to the hospital, and he was so bent out of shape, the doctor said, this is not the time to ask him questions. Detectives came to the hospital, of course, to ask him a whole bunch of questions because they wanted to know, what was going on. But he's 3 years old. You can't just go in there and just traumatize a young child. I mean, he was just found. He's just been laying in the woods, bites and snake bites all over him, and, you don't want to immediately start interrogating a 3-year-old about, what happened. And so they continued to search more of the field behind the church in hopes to find Katrina. They kept hearing a female voice saying, over here, over here, over here, but they could never find this female voice. All night they searched until about midnight, and then the next morning around 6 a.m. they got back up and searched more of the field behind the church. Finally, they find Yara, Fred's first wife. She comes down to the police station for questioning. She says that her and Katrina had an altercation in the past. They didn't like each other, and of course that makes sense because, like I said, when Fred met Katrina, he was still married to Yara. But she said she had nothing to do with Frankie, what happened to Frankie, and she definitely didn't know where Katrina was. But the one thing that struck a chord in detectives that Yara said, she flat out just said, I know who did it though. I could tell you who did it. And it was just like, wow, how does she know? She didn't even know anything about the story. She's just bursting out saying, hey, I know who did it. And she basically says that Fred did it. And the reason why she thinks Fred did it is because he tried to kill her and strangle her with a lamp cord. He told her while he was strangling her that if he could not have her No one could. Remember, she abruptly filed for divorce in the middle of the marriage because she wanted to escape from it, and he was not happy that she had done this. So he basically tried to kill her. Now, there was no proof there that he had done this. This was just his first wife saying this. He didn't know that she wasn't alive when he left the house, according to her. He thought she was dead. On April 25th at 5 p.m., Katrina's body was found in a cemetery. She had scratches all over her from being dragged across the ground, and the community was very hurt about her death. Everyone was distraught. Everyone was crushed. Like I said, people loved Katrina. She was very nice. She was very loving. She was a good mother. She was into the church. She did community service stuff. Everyone was just so hurt. But this is what it boiled down to the detectives. They assumed that Frank was possessive, okay? And the relationship between he and Katrina got volatile when she started dating Jack. Katrina had serious injury to her head. It looked like she had been hit over the head with a tire iron. On April 26th, the autopsy report said the head injury did not kill her. She died of strangulation, and there was a thin silver wire around her neck so tight that it was embedded into her skin. Now remember, Fred said around the time that Katrina went missing, he was at his uncle's house helping his uncle put up drywall because his uncle was building a house. So they went and asked his uncle, Jesse, shh, shh, they don't hear you. Shh, shh. Did you need help? What are you? You gonna get your dress caught. So they asked Fred's uncle to, collaborate. What is it? Collaborate? What is it? Corroborate their story. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you talking about collaborate.
Collaborate, right?
Yeah.
So detectives go to Fred's uncle to collaborate his story. That doesn't sound right.
To collaborate his story.
Yeah. Right. Listen, they went to the detectives went to Fred's uncle to see if Fred was actually with his uncle putting up the drywall when he went. That's basically all I'm trying to say. His uncle said that he got a phone call at 11:45 a.m., left and did not come back until 4 p.m. And he told his uncle that if anybody asks him where he was at, for him to tell anyone that he was helping him putting up this drywall and building this house. So basically, Fred just asked his uncle basically a lie, okay? So they had no kind of proof, no kind of fingerprints on the car, no kind of anything, and the only thing that detectives had at that time was a witness, 3-year-old Frankie. So Frankie was released from the hospital, and him and his grandmother went down to the police station so Frankie could give a statement. They asked Frankie who tied him up, and he flat out said, "My daddy did it." That's so sad. Don't cry. Frankie's daddy did it. Why are you so quiet now? I'm gonna need you to be quiet. So they issued a warrant to Fred Leonard. They went to search his house. They also interrogated him, hoping that he would confess. They also believed that he was behind the anonymous calls that sent the police to one church and that sent Fred Jr. and his cousin to another church. They think that he felt guilty for leaving Frankie out there to die and wanted someone to go save him. They showed Fred a family photo of him, Katrina, and Frankie together, and he refused to look at it after he looked at it that first time. They were trying to get him for capital murder, kidnapping, and child abuse. April 29th, they did a search warrant on Fred Leonard's house and actually found wire, the very wire that was around Katrina's neck, the very type of wire, the very silver wire. They also found child support papers that were hidden. He wasn't financially taking care of Frankie for the 3 years he was born, and now that Katrina was moving on to a relationship with Jack, she had filed for child support. So that made Fred very angry because, number one, he could no longer control her anymore. He wasn't with her anymore, and she decided to file for child support, and it was something that he did not want to pay. So he decided to kill her just to get rid of it. So basically, he left his son out there to die. Possibly animals would have been there to kill him, because he didn't want to feel guilty about killing his own son himself. So he tied his son to a tree, hoping that animals would kill him. That next year, Frankie went on the stand to testify against his father. He said they were in the car and they were driving to the church, and mommy was crying and daddy hit mommy on the head. I bet you that traumatized him forever. He basically told the story of him and his mother being in the car. They were supposed to be driving to church, and they were in the car arguing, and his mother ended up crying. His mom gets out of the car, and his dad busts his mom over the head with a tire iron and then chokes her with a string. A string. He thought it was a string. You know, he's a kid. He doesn't know. He thought it was a string. He didn't know it was wire. He saw this. Do you know that traumatized that little boy for the rest of his life, I'm sure. So he said his daddy did it, and the jury found Fred Leonard guilty of all counts, no death penalty, life in prison. And honestly, life in prison is a lot easier than people think. It's people in jail right now that are doing things on purpose just to get life in prison. Or is it death row? It's death row? I think it's death row. I don't think it's life in prison. I think it's so they can be on death row, because apparently death row is like the best place you can be in prison. So he got 30 years for kidnapping, 30 years for child abuse, life in prison. Wow, right? That is my Toxic Relationship Tuesday true crime video. Make sure you put what you think in the comment section below, okay? If you like my true crime videos, give it a big thumbs up and please share, okay? Have vision, stay focused. Namaste.